You've been lied to about money, and the lie is so comfortable, so socially acceptable that you defend it. They told you to work hard, stay loyal, follow the rules, and if you did all of that, eventually, someday, you'd be rewarded. But here's what they didn't tell you. The system isn't designed for you to win. It's designed to keep you playing, to keep you obedient, to keep you just comfortable enough that you never question why the ones who rise aren't the hardest workers. They're the most ruthless. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. Fortuna doesn't reward the deserving. It rewards those who act without hesitation, who manipulate opportunity, who refuse to wait for permission. Most people spend their entire lives hoping fairness will save them. It won't, because fairness is a psychological weapon used to keep you compliant while others take what should have been yours. This isn't about morality. This isn't about being a good person. This is about power. And power has rules that no one teaches you. Until now, you were taught a lie. A comfortable lie that keeps you locked in place while others take what should have been yours. They told you that if you follow the rules, work hard and stay obedient, the rewards would come. That approval from your boss, your parents, society, it would translate into power, into wealth, into respect. But here's the truth they don't want you to see. Obedience is the psychology of the weak. It's a survival mechanism designed for those who fear consequence more than they desire dominance. Every time you wait for permission to act, you're teaching the world that you don't trust your own judgment. And people can smell that weakness from a mile away. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It needs obedient workers who believe fairness exists. It needs you to think that playing by the rules will eventually get you noticed. But I've watched it for years, studied the patterns, seen the same cycle repeat. The ones who rise aren't the ones who wait. They're the ones who manipulate the boundary between acceptable and ruthless. They understand that power doesn't reward patience. It rewards those who move when others hesitate. You think you're building credibility by being the good one, but what you're really building is invisibility. No one respects the person who's always available, always agreeable, always safe. Approval is the currency of the powerless. When you act seeking validation, you hand control of your life to someone else. Your boss decides if you're worthy of a raise. Your peers decide if you're valuable enough to include. Your family decides if your choices are acceptable. You become a puppet, and the strings are pulled by people who have no interest in your ascension. This is manipulation at its finest. Not the kind you use, but the kind used on you. They condition you to associate obedience with safety and rebellion with failure. But survival in the real world doesn't favor the obedient. It favors those who understand the psychology of power and aren't afraid to weaponize it. I learned this the hard way. I spent years thinking effort equaled reward. I believed the narrative that if I just worked harder, stayed later, proved my loyalty, someone would notice. No one did, because loyalty without leverage is just servitude. The moment I stopped asking for approval and started taking what I'd earned, everything shifted. Not because I became better at my work, but because I became unpredictable. I set boundaries without explanation. I made decisions without consensus. I stopped waiting for fairness and started creating my own rules. And suddenly, respect followed. Not love, not friendship, respect. Because respect doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being feared just enough that people think twice before testing you. The fatal error isn't that you're obedient. It's that you still believe obedience leads somewhere. You think there's a finish line where your goodness gets rewarded, where your patience pays off, where someone finally says, you've earned it. That moment never comes. Because the game you're playing isn't designed for you to win, it's designed to keep you playing. The longer you wait for external validation, the longer you stay exactly where you are. And while you wait, others are moving. Not because they're smarter or more talented, but because they rejected the psychology of permission. They stopped caring about fairness and started focusing on dominance. That's where the real power begins. The 9-to-5 isn't a job. It's a controlled experiment in human psychology. You trade your time, your energy, your mental capacity for a paycheck that keeps you just comfortable enough not to rebel. It's brilliant, really. The system doesn't need chains anymore. It just needs you to believe that stability equals survival. You wake up, commute, sit in a chair, perform tasks someone else decided were valuable, and go home too tired to question it. This is how control works in the modern age. You're not oppressed, you're pacified. And pacification is far more effective than force because you defend it. You call it responsibility. You call it being realistic. But what you're really doing is choosing comfort over dominance. The illusion isn't that the 9-to-5 is bad. It's that you think it's safe. You believe that clocking in every day, following the structure, avoiding conflict, that's how you protect yourself from chaos. But here's what they won't tell you. The 9-to-5 is the chaos. It's a slow drain of your potential, a systematic erosion of ambition disguised as security. Every year you stay, you become more replaceable. Your skills narrow, your creativity atrophies. Your psychology shifts from what can I build to how do I keep what I have. And that shift, that's the kill shot. Because once you start thinking like someone who's afraid to lose, you've already lost. Fear becomes your primary emotion, and fear makes you controllable. I've seen people spend decades in the same role, waiting for recognition that never comes. They work late, take on extra projects, prove their loyalty over and over. And when the promotion finally arrives, it's not because they earned it. It's because they were the safest choice, the one who wouldn't cause problems, the one who'd accept the new title without demanding the power that should come with it. This is how organizations maintain control. They give you just enough to keep you invested, but never enough to make you dangerous. You get a raise, but not wealth. You get a title, but not respect. You get the illusion of progress while the boundary of your potential shrinks. Real power doesn't come from climbing a ladder someone else built. It comes from recognizing that the ladder is a distraction. Every hour you spend working for someone else's vision is an hour you're not building your own. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. I'm saying understand what it actually is. It's not your career. It's a transaction. You're renting out your time and skill to someone who's using it to build their wealth, their legacy, their freedom. And the moment you become inconvenient, unprofitable, or obsolete, you're gone. No loyalty, no fairness, no consequence for them. Just a line item removed from a spreadsheet. That's the truth they don't want you to see. Because if you see it, you stop being obedient. The awakening happens when you realize that security is the most dangerous illusion of all. It makes you risk-averse. It makes you grateful for mediocrity. It convinces you that the predictable paycheck is worth more than the unpredictable potential of building something that's yours. But wealth, real wealth, doesn't come from salary. It comes from ownership, equity, assets, things that generate value while you sleep. The 9-to-5 teaches you to think in hours, but power thinks in systems. It thinks in leverage. It thinks in multiplication, not addition. And the moment you shift your psychology from employee to operator, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly rewards you, but because you stop waiting for permission to take what's yours. Fortuna isn't luck. It's not some mystical force that randomly blesses the chosen few. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to accept. Fortuna is a river, and you either build the dam before the flood, or you drown. The masses wait for opportunity to arrive. They believe that if they're good enough, patient enough, deserving enough, circumstances will align in their favor. But that's not how power works. Fortuna doesn't reward virtue. It rewards preparation, aggression, and the ruthless ability to act when others hesitate. You don't wait for the right moment. You create it. And if you can't create it, you manipulate the conditions until the moment has no choice but to arrive. Most people misread the prince entirely. They think Machiavelli was teaching cruelty for cruelty's sake. But he was teaching survival. He was teaching dominance in a world where fairness is a fairy tale and morality is a weapon used by the weak to control the strong. Fortuna favors the bold, yes, but not the reckless. It favors those who understand timing, leverage, and the psychology of consequence. When you act too early, you're dismissed as impulsive. When you act too late, the opportunity is gone. But when you move at the exact intersection of preparation and chaos, that's when Fortuna bends. That's when you stop being subject to circumstance and start dictating it. Here's what they don't teach you in school, in business seminars, in motivational content. Fortuna is hostile by nature. It doesn't care about your effort, your intentions, your moral alignment. It only responds to force. Not physical force, strategic force. The ability to recognize a weak boundary and push through it before anyone realizes what you've done. Think of every major shift in power throughout history. It didn't happen because someone waited their turn. It happened because someone saw the opening and took it without asking permission. Revolutions, corporate takeovers, wealth transfers, they all follow the same pattern. Someone understood that Fortuna rewards those who act as if they already own what they're reaching for. I spent years thinking that if I prepared enough, worked hard enough, built enough skill, opportunity would find me. It didn't, because opportunity doesn't find anyone. You have to corner it, force it into a position where it has no choice but to yield. I've watched people with half my competence rise faster because they understood this one truth. Fortuna doesn't respect patience. It respects audacity. They asked for raises they hadn't earned yet. They pitched ideas before they were fully formed. They positioned themselves as indispensable before they actually were. And it worked. Not because they were better, but because they understood that perception is control. And control is the only currency Fortuna accepts. The real Machiavellian reading of Fortuna is this. It's not about being lucky, it's about reducing the role of luck entirely. You eliminate variables, you create multiple paths to the same outcome. You manipulate the environment so that even if one door closes, 3 others open. This is what separates those who rise from those who stagnate. The stagnant wait for one big break. The ruthless engineer 100 small breaks, knowing that volume beats precision when you're playing against chance. Fortuna isn't your enemy. Your belief in fairness is. Because fairness suggests that if you do everything right, you'll be rewarded. But Machiavelli knew better. Fortuna rewards those who act as if the rules don't apply to them. And most of the time they don't. You can't build power with a weak mind. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many strategies you learn, how many opportunities present themselves. If your psychology is still wired for approval, obedience, and fear of consequence, You'll sabotage yourself every time. The external world is just a reflection of your internal operating system. And right now, your system is running outdated code. Code that says, wait your turn. Code that says, don't make waves. Code that says, what will people think? That code was installed by people who benefit from your compliance. Parents who wanted easy children, teachers who wanted obedient students, employers who wanted predictable workers. But none of them wanted you powerful, because your power threatens their control. The first step isn't action, it's reprogramming. You need to identify every belief that keeps you passive and burn it out. Start with this one. Good things come to those who wait. Oh, that's a lie designed to keep you stationary while others move. Or this. Treat people how you want to be treated. Noble in theory, fatal in practice. The world doesn't operate on reciprocity, it operates on leverage. When you give respect freely, you teach people it has no value. When you offer help without boundaries, you become a resource to be exploited, not a person to be respected. The psychology of power starts with the ruthless acceptance that fairness is a myth. People don't treat you how you treat them. They treat you how you allow them to treat you. I'll give you a practical example. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's how casinos keep people gambling. You don't reward every action, you reward unpredictably. This creates obsession. People stay because they never know when the next win is coming. Now apply that to how you interact with others. Stop being reliably available. Stop responding immediately. Stop over-explaining your decisions. When you become unpredictable, people start treating you differently. Not because you're being manipulative, but because you're respecting your own time enough that others have to respect it too. This is basic dominance psychology. Predictability is weakness. Mystery is power. Most people fail here because they confuse kindness with weakness. They think that to be powerful, they need to be cold, distant, hostile. That's not it. The truly dangerous ones are those who can be warm when it serves them and ice cold when it doesn't. They control the temperature of every interaction. They give affection strategically, withdraw it without explanation, and never apologize for setting boundaries. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're teaching people that access to you is earned, not assumed. And once that lesson is embedded, your relationships change. People stop taking you for granted. They stop assuming you'll always be there. They start valuing your presence because they understand it can be taken away. The external changes, the money, the respect, the freedom, they come after the internal shift. You can't negotiate a better salary if you still believe you're lucky to have the job. You can't build a business if you're terrified of what people will say when you fail. You can't command respect if you're constantly seeking approval. The psychology must change first. And that change doesn't happen through affirmations or motivation. It happens through exposure. You put yourself in situations where fear shows up, and instead of retreating, you act anyway. Not recklessly, strategically. You take calculated risks where the downside is manageable and the upside is transformative. And every time you do, your internal code rewrites itself. Fear becomes data, not paralysis. Rejection becomes feedback, not failure. And slowly, your psychology shifts from survive to dominate. You're not broke because the economy is bad. You're not stuck because you didn't get lucky. You're exactly where you are because of the skills you prioritized and the ones you ignored. Every hour you spent consuming instead of creating, every year you invested in being good at a job instead of being valuable in a market. every choice to stay comfortable instead of learning something that scared you. That's why you're here. Your financial situation isn't a mystery, it's a receipt. And the bill reflects exactly what you purchased with your time and attention. Most people develop skills that make them employable, but employable is just another word for replaceable. You need skills that make you irreplaceable, skills that generate leverage, skills that create power. The difference between wealth and salary is simple. Salary pays you for your time. Wealth pays you for your results. And results come from skills that scale. If you're paid by the hour, you're capped. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy you can expend. But if you're paid for outcomes, for solving problems, for creating systems, for building assets, there's no ceiling. The skill you need isn't hard work. Everyone works hard. The skill you need is discernment, the ability to look at the market and ask, what does the world value that I can provide? Not what do I enjoy? Not what I'm already good at. What does the market reward? Because the market doesn't care about your passion. It cares about scarcity and demand. Let me give you something concrete. If you want financial power, develop one of 3 skill categories: creation, persuasion, or distribution. Creation means you build something: software, content, products, intellectual property. Persuasion means you influence behavior: sales, negotiation, copywriting, leadership. Distribution means you control access, networks, platforms, audiences, capital. If your current skill set doesn't fall into one of these 3, you're not building wealth. You're renting your time to someone who is. And the longer you stay in that position, the harder it becomes to leave. Because your psychology adapts. You start to believe that trading hours for dollars is the only way. But it's not. It's just the safest way. And safety is the enemy of wealth. I know people who spent a decade mastering skills that became obsolete in 2 years. I know others who learned one high-leverage skill, how to sell, how to code, how to write persuasively, and built entire empires around it. The difference wasn't intelligence. It was ruthlessness. They didn't waste time on skills that felt good to develop. They asked, what skill, if mastered, would make me dangerous in the market? Then they obsessed over it. They didn't dabble. They didn't diversify too early. They went deep on one thing until they could charge 10 times what everyone else charged. That's how you break free. Not by being good at everything, by being exceptional at one thing that the market can't ignore. Your financial situation will not change until your skill set changes. You can read every book on wealth, listen to every podcast, follow every guru. None of it matters if you're still developing skills that keep you stuck. The market rewards rarity. If 1 million people can do what you do, you'll never be paid well for it. But if you can do something that only a few thousand can do, something that solves an expensive problem, something that creates disproportionate value, you shift from labor to leverage. And leverage is where power lives. Stop investing time in getting better at your job. Start investing in getting better at something the world pays for, whether you show up or not. Most people wait for opportunity to announce itself. They expect it to arrive with clear signals, obvious pathways, guaranteed outcomes. But opportunity doesn't work like that. It shows up disguised as risk, uncertainty, and work that nobody else wants to do. The ones who rise aren't the ones with the most talent. They're the ones who can see opportunity before it's obvious. And that's a skill. A cold, calculated skill that requires you to detach from emotion and read the patterns most people ignore. You need to stop asking, what do I want to do, and start asking, where is the gap between what exists and what's needed? That gap is where power hides. That's where you position yourself before anyone else realizes the space is valuable. Talent is overrated. I've seen brilliant people stay broke because they couldn't identify where their talent had leverage. They were good at things the market didn't value, or they were competing in oversaturated spaces where being good wasn't enough. Real strategy isn't about being the best, it's about being the best in a context that matters. You need to identify intersections. Where does your natural ability meet an emerging demand? Where is there a problem expensive enough that people will pay to solve it, but not so competitive that you're just another voice in the noise? That intersection is your entry point. And once you're in, you don't stay there. You dominate it, extract the value, and move before the space gets crowded. Here's a tactical approach. Look at industries that are growing but still inefficient. Look at skills that are in demand but undersupplied. Look at problems that wealthy people or profitable companies are actively trying to solve. Then ask yourself, can I position myself as the solution? Not someday, now. Even if you're not fully qualified yet, especially if you're not fully qualified yet. Because by the time you feel ready, the opportunity is gone. I've watched people spend years preparing, building the perfect resume, waiting until they had every credential. And by the time they moved, the market had shifted. Someone else, less qualified but more ruthless, had already claimed the space. Timing is control. And control doesn't wait for permission. You also need to understand that opportunity is tribal. It doesn't float freely in the world waiting to be discovered. It's hidden inside networks, inside rooms you're not in yet, inside conversations happening without you. This is why proximity matters more than talent. If you're the smartest person in a room full of people going nowhere, you're still going nowhere. But if you're average in a room full of people making moves, you'll rise by association. You need to manipulate your environment. Get close to people who have access to what you want. Not to beg, not to ask for favors, but to observe, to learn the language, to position yourself as useful before you ask for anything. Survival psychology teaches us that people help those who make them look good. Be that person. Solve small problems without being asked. Create value before you extract it. The final piece is this. Opportunity has a shelf life. When you see it, you move. Not next month. Not after you've thought it through. You move while everyone else is still deciding if it's real. Hesitation is a luxury you can't afford if you want power. The market doesn't reward caution. It rewards speed and execution. I've taken opportunities I wasn't ready for, failed publicly, adjusted and succeeded anyway. Because even in failure, I learned what worked and what didn't, and that knowledge became leverage for the next move. Most people never even get that far. They see the opening, feel the fear, and talk themselves out of it. Then they watch someone else take it and wonder why they're always late. You're not late. You're just too careful. And carefulness keeps you exactly where you are. Competence without curiosity makes you a machine. Curiosity without competence makes you a dreamer. But when you combine them, when you're skilled enough to execute and curious enough to explore beyond what's expected, that's where power germinates. Most people pick one. They either become experts in a narrow field, repeating the same patterns until they're obsolete, or they stay perpetually interested in everything, but never deep enough to be dangerous in anything. The ruthless ones understand that competence gives you credibility, but curiosity gives you edge. It's the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions, to test boundaries others respect, to explore territories that feel risky or uncertain. That intersection is where you stop being predictable, and unpredictability is leverage. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. You're competent in your field. Let's say you're good at marketing, coding, finance, whatever. That competence gets you in the room. But once you're in, curiosity is what makes you indispensable. You start asking, why do we do it this way? What if we approached it from a completely different angle? What are the adjacent skills or industries that could give us an advantage here? Most people don't ask these questions because they're afraid of looking stupid or overstepping. But those questions are exactly what separates operators from employees. Employees execute. Operators see systems, identify weak points, and redesign them. And companies, wealthy people, power structures, they don't pay for execution, they pay for insight. Curiosity is also a filtering mechanism. It shows you who's actually thinking and who's just performing. When you ask deeper questions, most people get defensive. They retreat into, "This is how it's always been done," or "That's not my department." Those responses tell you everything. They're not interested in power. They're interested in safety. But the ones who lean in, who engage with your questions, who start building on your ideas, those are your allies. Not because they like you, but because they recognize that you're operating at a different level. You're not there to coast. You're there to dominate. And dominance requires constant evolution, constant recalibration, constant hunger for what's next. Here's where most people fail. They develop competence and then stop. They think mastery is the end goal. But mastery is just the foundation. Once you're competent, the real game begins. You start layering adjacent skills. You start connecting dots between industries that don't traditionally intersect. You start seeing patterns that others miss because they're too specialized, too comfortable, too afraid to look foolish by venturing outside their lane. I've built more wealth by borrowing strategies from unrelated fields than I ever did by staying in my lane. Psychology informs negotiation. Game theory informs business strategy. Neuroscience informs marketing. When you understand how systems work across contexts, you become dangerous, because you're not bound by the rules of any single domain. The seed of power isn't just skill. It's skill plus the relentless drive to ask what's beyond it. Competence gets you respect. Curiosity gets you control. And when you combine them, you stop being someone who executes other people's visions and start being someone who builds your own. You stop waiting for instructions and start identifying opportunities no one else sees. You stop asking permission and start testing what's possible. This is how you separate from the masses, not by working harder, by thinking differently. And thinking differently requires you to stay curious long after everyone else has settled into comfort. Comfort is the graveyard of ambition. Curiosity is the weapon that keeps you moving. Power has a cost. And it's not the cost they show you in movies. The long hours, the stress, the sacrifice of comfort, those are trivial. The real cost is psychological. The moment you start ascending, the moment you stop playing by the rules everyone else obeys, you become a target, not because you did anything wrong, but because your rise exposes their stagnation. Your movement forces them to confront the fact that they've been standing still, and most people can't handle that, so they don't cheer for you. They resent you. They'll smile to your face and undermine you behind closed doors. They'll call your ambition greed. They'll call your boundaries arrogance. They'll reframe your success as luck, as ruthlessness, as anything except what it actually is. The consequence of choices they were too afraid to make. This is where most people break. They can handle external obstacles, competition, failure, financial risk, but they can't handle betrayal from people they thought were on their side. Friends who stop calling, family who questions your decisions, colleagues who suddenly treat you differently. It feels personal. And it is personal. But not in the way you think. It's not about you. It's about them. Your ascension is a mirror, and mirrors are brutal. When you rise, you make everyone around you confront their own lack of movement. And instead of using that discomfort as fuel, they use it as justification to pull you back down. Misery doesn't just love company, it demands it. And if you're not careful, their hostility will manipulate you into shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. I've lost people I thought were permanent, not because I changed into someone cruel or distant, but because I stopped being available for their drama. I stopped validating their complaints. I stopped pretending that their lack of progress was anyone's fault but their own. And that honesty, that refusal to participate in their victim psychology, made me the villain. They didn't say it outright, but the distance spoke. The passive aggression, the subtle digs, the sudden silence when I shared wins. That's the price. And you need to be ruthless enough to pay it. Because if you compromise your ascension to maintain relationships with people who don't want you to rise, you've already lost. You're choosing their comfort over your power. And that choice will haunt you. Here's the biology behind it. Humans are tribal. We evolved in small groups where survival depended on cohesion. If someone in the tribe started acting differently, gaining resources others didn't have, displaying dominance, it triggered a threat response. Because in a zero-sum environment, your gain meant someone else's loss. That instinct is still wired into us. When you rise, their limbic system reads it as danger. Not conscious danger, primal danger. The kind that bypasses logic and goes straight to emotion. They don't think I'm threatened by their success. They think something feels wrong about them. And that feeling manifests as hostility, skepticism, social resistance. It's not rational. It's survival psychology turned inward, and it's everywhere. The ones who make it aren't the ones who avoid this cost. They're the ones who accept it without flinching. They understand that losing people is part of the process. That hostility is confirmation they're moving. That social resistance is proof they're breaking free from the gravity of mediocrity. You don't need everyone to support you. You need a few people who operate at your level or higher. Everyone else is weight, and weight slows you down. Let them fall away. Let them misunderstand you. Let them rewrite the narrative to make themselves feel better. None of it matters. What matters is that you keep moving. Because on the other side of that loss, that hostility, that resistance, that's where power lives. And power doesn't apologize for the cost. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, not powerful. And safety in evolutionary terms meant conformity. Stay with the tribe. Don't stand out. Don't challenge the hierarchy. Because the ones who did, the ones who deviated, who questioned, who took risks the group didn't approve of, they got exiled. And exile meant death. So your nervous system learned to fear rejection more than it fears mediocrity. It learned to prioritize belonging over dominance. That's the biology working against you. Every time you consider a bold move, every time you think about breaking from the pack, your brain floods you with anxiety. Not because the move is dangerous, but because it's different. And difference triggers the survival mechanism that says, stay small, stay safe, stay with the group. This is why most people never escape. It's not lack of opportunity. It's not lack of talent. It's the biological weight of conformity crushing every impulse to rise. You feel it in your body. The tightness in your chest when you think about quitting your job. The nausea when you imagine telling people you're starting a business. The shame when you set a boundary and someone reacts with hostility. That's not intuition. That's your limbic system trying to protect you from a threat that doesn't exist anymore. The tribe won't exile you, but your brain doesn't know that. It's still running software from 10,000 years ago when social rejection was a death sentence. And until you override that software, you'll keep choosing safety over power. You'll keep sacrificing your potential to avoid discomfort. The tribal instinct to pull you down isn't malicious. It's mechanical. When you start moving differently, the people around you experience cognitive dissonance. They've justified their own stagnation by believing that where they are is where they should be, that their choices were reasonable, that the system is fair, and if they just keep doing what they're doing, it'll work out. But then you show up and break the pattern. You stop complying. You start building. You take risks they told themselves weren't worth taking, and suddenly their entire psychological framework is threatened. If you can do it, that means they could have done it too. And they didn't. So instead of celebrating your courage, they attack it. They call you reckless. They predict your failure. They remind you of every reason it won't work. Not because they care about you, but because your success invalidates their inaction. Here's what you need to internalize. The majority will always resist your ascension. Not because they're bad people, but because your movement forces them to confront their own lack of it. And most people would rather drag you back to their level than elevate themselves to yours. This is the biology of conformity in action. The group protects its equilibrium, and you are disrupting that equilibrium. So they'll use shame, guilt, and social pressure to manipulate you back into place. They'll disguise it as concern. Are you sure you're making the right choice? What if it doesn't work out? You're changing. That last one is the tell. When people say you're changing, what they really mean is you're no longer controllable. And that terrifies them. Because if you're not playing by the rules they're stuck in, it exposes the fact that the rules were always optional. The only way to win is to stop seeking approval from people who are biologically wired to keep you where you are. You need to find a new tribe. A tribe of people who've already broken free, who understand the cost, who respect the psychology of ascension. Until you do, you're fighting alone. And fighting alone against the weight of conformity is brutal, but it's necessary, because every time you resist the pull, every time you move despite the fear, despite the judgment, despite the hostility, you rewire your own biology. You teach your nervous system that deviation doesn't equal death, that standing alone doesn't mean you're wrong, that power requires you to operate outside the boundaries most people never even question. That's the shift. And once it happens, the tribe's opinion becomes irrelevant. You stop needing their validation. You stop fearing their rejection. And that's when you become truly dangerous. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you take. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop wasting energy on fairness, on justice, on the belief that good things come to good people. They don't. Fortuna doesn't care about your morals. It doesn't care how hard you worked, how much you sacrificed, how pure your intentions were. It responds to one thing: force. Not physical force, strategic force. The willingness to act when others hesitate. The ability to see an opening and move through it without apologizing. The ruthlessness to prioritize your ascension over everyone else's comfort. That's what Fortuna rewards. Not virtue, not patience, not the deserving, the ruthless. History proves this over and over. The people who rose to power weren't the nicest, the most ethical, the most fair. They were the ones who understood leverage, who manipulated perception, who built alliances when it served them and severed them when it didn't, who took credit for wins and deflected blame for losses, who moved faster than their competition could react. This isn't cynicism, it's reality. And if you're still clinging to the idea that playing by the rules will get you ahead, you're not just naive. You're complicit in your own irrelevance. Because the rules were written by people who benefit from your obedience. They don't want you to see that the game is rigged. They want you to keep believing that if you just work harder, if you just stay loyal, if you just wait your turn, eventually you'll be rewarded. You won't. The ruthless don't wait. They don't ask permission. They don't justify their moves to people who aren't in the arena. They identify what they want, calculate the cost, and take it. And yes, there are consequences. There's hostility, there's judgment, there's loss. But those consequences are temporary. What's permanent is the position you claim, while everyone else is still debating whether it's ethical to claim it. I've watched people agonize over decisions for months. Should I leave this job? Should I start this business? Should I ask for this raise? And while they deliberate, someone else acts. Someone less qualified, less prepared, but more ruthless. And they win. Not because they were better, but because they moved. Fortuna is a test of psychology, not morality. It doesn't ask if you're good enough. It asks if you're bold enough. If you can tolerate the discomfort of acting without certainty. If you can survive the social resistance that comes with breaking rank. If you can endure the loneliness of standing apart from the masses who are still waiting for someone to give them permission to rise. Most people fail that test, not because they lack ability, but because they lack the stomach for what power actually requires. They want dominance without ruthlessness. They want respect without conflict. They want wealth without risk. And Fortuna laughs at them, because it knows that wanting something and being willing to pay the price for it are not the same thing. This is the final truth, the one that separates those who ascend from those who remain. You will not be rewarded for being deserving. You will be rewarded for being relentless, for refusing to accept the limits others place on you, for moving when it's uncomfortable, when it's uncertain, when everyone around you is telling you to stop. That's the price. And if you're not willing to pay it, then stop pretending you want power. Because power doesn't negotiate. It doesn't compromise. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It goes to whoever takes it first. And right now, while you're reading this, someone else is taking what could have been yours. This is where most people turn back. They hear the truth and decide it's too harsh, too cold, too ruthless. They retreat into the comfort of fairness, into the safety of obedience, into the illusion that someone will eventually notice their effort and reward it. But you're still here, which means you see it. You see that the game was never about deserving. It was about taking. And now you have a choice. You can go back to waiting for approval, waiting for permission, waiting for Fortuna to smile on you because you were good enough. Or you can act. You can rewire your psychology, develop the skills that create leverage, position yourself at the intersection of competence and opportunity, and move before anyone tells you it's time. The ruthless don't ask. They take. And they do it, while everyone else is still deciding if it's fair. Watch the next video. Machiavelli's money secrets the rich hide to keep you obedient. Because if you think this was uncomfortable, wait until you see what they've been hiding from you about wealth, control, and the manipulation of masses. Write this in the comments. I no longer wait for permission. Fortuna rewards the ruthless. Be ruthless.